Hi, this is Little Dwarf playing games while rambling incoherently into a microphone. Why? Well, just because I can, and I continue with Gamedeck blind. This episode will be nothing but the CodeX entries, because I gathered quite a lot of them since the last time I read the Codex. Unfortunately, this game's Codex is a little botched because it doesn't record the new things or the things you've read that well. For example, I have never clicked on this, and it is no different than, for example, this, which I have clicked on. So basically I'll just check everything, and then in editing I will cut out the parts that I did take a look at before. For example, I'm pretty sure I never read anything about Trepanator. So this whole episode will be nothing but the Codex. If you're not interested in that, you can just skip it, and gameplay will resume from the next one. Trepanator's dagger. Yeah, I know that cheats ain't right, but being an old-timer ain't right either, and that's what I am. I can't afford a BLB, so life's a whore, and I'm not in the mood to fuck whores. That's why I got to cheat. In my dagger in Twisted and Perverted, if my ticker can't take a good screwing, I can at least watch a whore die. Thanks to the cheat, she keeps dying over and over, and because she doesn't finish fully dying, she doesn't respawn. Cool. I have a different word for that. I made it myself. I dug up some old code from before the testing stage and made a picture-perfect dagger. Whores beware. I forgot. Let me write down before I forget again. It keeps logs. Fuck yeah. I feel like it's alive. A fucking ring of power. It sees who holds it and where it is. And it's got a fucking AI. If it could, it would stand up and fucking take a stroll. My life in crime. Fredo and Starlet trapped. The log of Trepanator's dagger showed that Fredo and Starlet had found themselves inside something that looks like a time trap. It happened in one of the alleys in this location. Trepanator's dagger remembered whose hands were holding it and who struck it. It was wielded by someone labeled as Cult Leader, and its victim was Starlet. Tancred Brute. News from beyond the barriers. Today in the Campino Forest area northwest of Warsaw City, there was a tragic accident. 3 kilometers from the ABB section, a team of outrangers patrolling the assigned quadrant got a distress call from a group of tourists who ventured beyond the barrier without a valid pheromone implants for this season. The team arrived on the scene within a minute using a Beowulf-class transporter. The group of 5 tourists was surrounded by a pack of lynx, of the Lynx fulmina species, and a flock of Aratoxica parrots. Visibility was limited by swarms of bees, wasps, and mosquitoes. The squad proceeded to extract the tourists while firing aggressively at the animals. Everyone was saved, although 3 were seriously injured and 1 person lost an arm. As it turned out, the Beowulf, damaged in battle, could not carry everyone, so the commander decided that the transport would take the survivors directly to a hospital, while the squad reached the ABB on foot. It was a very difficult and dramatic decision, made after a brief consultation with the other team members. The tourists' recklessness and their body and blood odors alerted the other nearby animals. The outrangers were forced their way through the jungle, continuing to fire. While they were aided by the summoned MCC beacon, the animals continued to grow in number. At the request of the Outranger headquarters, we will not disclose the personal details of the squad members. We were authorized only to reveal one, Sergeant Tancred Brute. During the continuing battle and marching through the wilderness, another Outranger team was called as the commander realized that due to the amount of aggression from Warsaw's fauna, they could not make it to the barrier. More and more were wounded until the only one left fit for fighting was Sergeant Brute. The commander and other squad members report that Tancred single-handedly gathered those who couldn't walk into a clearing where a transporter was supposed to arrive. She then covered them while she ran out of ammo. She engaged in melee combat with the still coming lynx, parrots, and other animals. Her body was butchered, Even her augmented armor, worn by the Outrangers on patrol outside the ABBs, didn't help. The extraction unit arrived at the last moment. The survivors were taken aboard the Outranger vehicle, while the remains of Sergeant Brute were carried onto a medical transport, where machines performed a decapitation of the brave Outranger, saving her life. Sergeant Tancred has been nominated for the Crimson Heart Medal, the Outranger's highest honor. We know that her life and the lives of her squad members and tourists are not in danger. We salute the brave Outrangers and are grateful for their commitment. And to the reckless tourist, a word of warning about forays beyond the ABBs. They are extremely dangerous. If you don't have the appropriate implants, it's like asking for death. Stock market report coming to you after the break. Okay, I read that before. The faulty YTC series. I'm an ex-SEAL, currently a retired mercenary. You won't learn my real name. You can call me Amadon. I am going to tell you about the robots from the faulty YTC line, and then I'll explain why I'm doing that. The name of the series comes from the U2 combatant slogan. The original purpose of the machines was combat support unit for infantry units, injured soldier and supply transport, and explosive disarmament. Some eggheads who had never held a gun in their life equipped the YTC series with a heavily advertised psychological support module and self-teaching AI. The YTC robots were supposed to turn into self-improving soldiers and compassionate comrades. Unfortunately, just like with many other solutions created not by soldiers, but by cheerful fairies working in warm offices, the YTC learning algorithms turned them into violent, ruthless killers, and their psychological support, fed with soldiers' shop talk, made them spit swear words and bad jokes. They quickly stopped sending YTCs into battle, as they were too unpredictable, but that doesn't mean the machines disappeared from bases and barracks. The clever soldiers started turning them into mayordomos that looked over FOBs. In case you're a little snot, that stands for Forward Operating Base. They disarmed the YTCs. The disarmed YTCs did quite well in that role, and because they were still learning, they grew soft while their wit grew sharper. I did hear stories about YTCs saving people's lives, but I also heard ones where they did terrible things. As a civilian, I saw a couple of these robots used in various ways, as warehouse assistants, mini cranes, crashing machines, and even once or twice as waiters. Now, as to why I'm writing this, if you ever come across a YTC unit, regardless of how it behaves, be sure of this. The person who smuggled it out of the army has a close emotional bond with it. That's the only reason you would risk transporting this junk into civilian world. So, no matter how the robot behaves, you should always respect its bond with its owner, and never judge soldiers even if they are robots. Only the ones who have seen battle know what it's like. My darkness. Yeah, that just makes me feel worse for deleting the robot's personality matrix, which again highlights how stupid this game's codex is. Because all of the info is sort of lumped together, you know, the encyclopedic info with like the game-related info, and it makes it difficult to navigate sort of in the moment. The Belize massacre. We bring you the latest news from Belize, a district of the Free States of the Americas, where for the last 5 years, drug cartels and corporate forces have been at war with each other. The biggest manufacturer of wooden products, the Green Power Company, relies on timber from the ABB-enclosed district of Belize. They hired a private army called Crystal Dust, who promised to clean things up within 2 months, but that was over 2 years ago and there's no end in sight. Today, we were shocked by the footage that was leaked into the media from within the Crystal Dust ranks. It was a massacre committed by one of the CD mercenaries, Sergeant Herman T. of Warsaw City, and his YTC series combat robot. We need to warn you that the footage contains graphic images. We see how Sergeant T and his robot engage a group of children and murder them in cold blood. Children? Why did they do it? Have Crystal Dust lost their moral compass? One might say children were armed and also opened fire, but we have to remember that it's Sergeant T and his YTC unit who attacked their village, not the other way around. We see the sergeant kill at least 10 boys with one burst from his plasma rifle. What a degenerate. Let's remember to give him a warm welcome when he comes back to free Europe. Is Herman T the Tick? Because the Tick's name is Herman. Ramon is Pani Center's granddaughter. You could never be sure of anything inside the network. Ramon turned out to be a woman, most probably Ramona. The name seemed odd to me from the start. And Pani Center is her grandfather. After a bit more digging, I would probably find out that Haggis was her uncle and her foster mom was... never mind. Apparently Ramon was a recruiter for the Hon Clan, an organization operating in the Knight's Code game. They had as much in common with TNP as poultry with space travel, or the other way around. Ramon is a true believer. I had the feeling that Ramon really believed in the clan's teachings. Rama Matan report, age 27, gender MK? What does the K stand for here? Function drone operator, no allergies, psychological and informational metabolism in the 18th percentile, correct body response to pheromone implants, born and raised in Sydneyland, heir to the Matan fortune, see bio estates, bacteriophobe with mild organophobia, a clear aversion to lower social strata, evident dislike for his grandmother, even his father's mother, Delia Matan, reason unknown, admitted to the Outrangers after a strong persuasion from his father, who has contributed a considerable sum to the organization's budget. Until Rama accepts working in a formation, his active participation is more dangerous operations is inadvisable. Extended psychological profile, insufficient permissions. In order to access this information, log into the Outrangers intranet. Scandal at Matans. Speaking of Australian millionaires, did you hear the news about the Matans? I didn't. Tell me. Their youngest, you know him, Rama, a well-known mischief maker. That one. He's the only young biologically though. He recently got him a BLB. Yes, I know, and not a BLB, a mobrium. They stopped reproducing to protect themselves against losing their fortune. And picture this. They threw a party in the High Sky Sphere, the largest and highest in Sydneyland, of course, and wholly owned by the Matans. God, I would love to marry one of them. Hang on, the party, right? Drones flying around, champagne for 3,000 credits a bottle, the social creme de la creme, an opera singer. What was her name? Sophia Turnberg? Yes, that's her. And she's on the hovering anti-G stage. It's like a dream. The music, the applause and everything. And you have frames made of actual gold flying around, displaying masterpieces of that painter. Shoot, what is it with me and names today? Emmanuel Rex? Yes, his art is a bit unsettling, right? It looks like reality is passing through each other. It was actually a charity auction. I think they raised enough money for extending the ABB barriers to areas belonging to the Aborigines or something. The ocean flooded quite a lot of land there, you know? Right. Now, you listen to this. One of the drones that poured champagne was actually controlled by Rama. I hear he's quite tech-savvy. It looked as if the machine was just flying around pouring drinks, but it was taking photos and recording the unsuspecting guests. God. And the son of a gun put it all on the screens at one point. Suddenly the audience sees Mrs. Turnberg's terrible armpit wrinkle, because you know she's a natural and doesn't do any plastic surgery, with a caption that says, gross. No. And Mr. Rex ear wrinkle, because artists often do, Because as artists often do, he wants to age with dignity with the words, "You've got to be kidding me, the Matans are idiots. They know as much about art as aborigines do about astronomy." He said that seriously, but that is not all. Lady Hamilton, she was there too? Sure she was. That sneaky bastard Rami recorded her. First, he zoomed in on her hair, then showed what she had said. What do you think? When will that old fool realize that Taja is cheating on him? Wait, but Taja is the wife of Rama's father Romulus, right? And she's cheating on him? According to Lady Hamilton, she is. And these are just the 3 of the 20 tasty bits that which Rama treated his guests to. He managed to turn everyone against each other. Then Delia Matan, the family matriarch in charge of the empire's assets and liabilities, told his grandson to... Wait, how did she put it? Well, the woman basically banished and disinherited him. She said that he had to spend 10 years living like a low city commoner, deprived of luxuries and exposed to the dangers and hardships, or he would lose all claims to her fortune, and then she banished him from Australia. Oh man, and if he lasts the 10 years? Then he'll come back into her favor, but do you realize what 10 years without luxuries must mean to a dandy like him? Fragment from a program, Nothing in the Morning, channel of the New Europe television. Nanette Doucette. The recording is missing first 5 seconds of the conversation. Replaying the beginning is not possible. Actually, I thought we would finally meet in Realium too. Oh, Realium, Mr. said. People have wasted enough time on meeting in person to fulfill... Haven't people wasted enough time on meeting in person to fulfill formalities? True. Isn't it? To meet, we would all have to get from A to B, find parking, make our way to the establishment that provided suitable safeguards and no one could spy on us using a drone or a camera. You're right. Of course I am right, my dear Miss Doucette. Viper gives us 100% guarantee that no one will eavesdrop on us or pry into our business. Not that we have anything to hide. Of course not. I assure you there is no reason to be ashamed that your clinic is not doing very well. That is not what I wanted to take over Nanette's Gardens program in harvest time. Trust me, I would be happy to. You would take good care of it, would you? Absolutely, ma'am. Your children will be taken care of and provided with the progress-stimulating exercises, just like they have been. Couldn't we still meet in person? I'll be honest, Mr. Set. I can see this thing keeps coming back like advertising drone in Low City. I am a disfigured man. I use a prosthetic face. But that's what regenerative medicine is for. Not for everyone, Mr. Set. My DNA doesn't take kindly to that sort of procedure. What about a cleansing? I can't afford it, but I treat the defect as a learning experience. It shows me what pain is and makes me want to help others. Mr. Lepsky, I really fear for you, but it's rather strange that we never... Don't you have enough to worry about with the cancer hospital? Yes, the hospital is sick, like my patients. That's why I have dedicated myself to it and the gardens. Let me help you. Why don't you leave Nanette's Gardens to me? You can get a break and I can do what I'm addicted to be honest, which is helping others. You realize it's sort of an addiction? Oh yes, I'm sending you the documents. I just need your in, and that's it. I'll take care of the kids and the gardens, and you can focus on your hospital. Get some rest. The conversation continues for another 10 minutes and 14 seconds. Playback of the remaining part of the conversation is not possible. Filming the filmmakers. The first question for our guest. The conversational director known as Martin32. Forgive me, I cannot pronounce the full name. Martin? Are you ready for a flurry of questions? Always. Is it true you like pierogi? I love pierogi. What is your best film? How I Unleashed the Second Media War? The worst one? That one is yet to be made. What do you love? Mobriums. And what do you hate? AIs. It's despicable when inanimate objects try to imitate people. You have never made a holo movie with digital actors? Ganesha forbid. What do you strive for? Perfection. Your biggest blunder? Let me think. Nahum Stain, the lead actor in Stars in Stars, came on set in a suit whose middle layer would have non-Newton liquid, which is a kind of liquid that solidifies on impact. That day we were going to shoot a scene where Jessica Ban punches him in the stomach. She's a powerful woman. So what happened? The night before, Nahum was showing off in a bar wearing the exact same suit that he has borrowed from Jasmine, our costume designer, without my knowledge and very secretively. He was so wasted that he couldn't see the leaks from some of his stomach pockets. I think I know where this is going. We started shooting, Jessica hit him, and he bent over and spat blood. The crew was panic-struck. A doctor with a medibot was on set. We always have one when we shoot violent scenes. The robot put some pipe in his mouth, stitched something up, and in the end the scene looked so good, it was actually better than all of Stars in Stars. In fact, it's in the extras, and we've made more from it than from the holo movie. So it wasn't really a blunder. No, not really. Anyway, I realized then how fragile life was. A lord, the handle of a player who took the name Galomar in Knight's Code, age unknown, gender undeclared, experience 5 years, leader of the Hon clan based on the Hon Island. Knight's Code admins reported on 3 occasions that the behavior of the Lord's subordinates bears the mark of a cult. Having recognized little social harm, they refrained from further action. Icarus. Ken was popular here. He managed to escape the lower levels and ascend on the wings of fame, if only for the moment. Sadly, the sun burned his feathers. My secret job. My conservative, technocumenate-loving Bob thinks that I'm a housewife. His world would shatter if he learned the truth. People appear to be together, but they really aren't. They seem to know each other, but they don't. I wonder when, or if, I will tell him that when he's at work, I'm busy testing void stars. To tell you the truth, keeping secrets gets me excited. My own space. Assassin's Guide, entry 1325. I've got an idea. I know how to arouse my wilted married sex life. I called a colleague of my husband and asked him to tell Bob that Rhonda seems to be playing TNP. What's TNP? Bob asked. And then Ernest, the colleague, explained everything. He was recording Bob. Seriously, you should have seen his face. The fun is about to begin. My blades are sharp and ready. Just give in and play the game, Bobby. I'll hunt you down, then I'll take off my skin, so that you know who screwed you and beat you. Okay, this is interesting. So she was actually kind of also playing a game, or at least trying to use it as a way to spice up her sort of erotic life with her husband, which in a way, it's a little weird, but it's kind of fun that she wanted to involve him. She could have just went around cheating, but she specifically wanted him to be involved. Me, the tester, Ronnie, the disappearing extras in the mining laser in Thug is a bug that's causing many sleepless nights for both the designers and players alike. Void Stars might be in alpha, but people still play it and mine. I'm counting on your tester experience and intuition. Check exactly when the shit disappears and figure out the conditions. The QA testers believe it happens when you use the hexen to drill an asteroid containing something, but it's not 100% reproducible. There must be another factor. You're the only one who can figure this out. I'm counting on you, Magic Maker. QA Director. Agreement, Warsaw City. As of today, Ms. Rhonda Zappa, holder of IN Encrypted, is hereby employed by Zack & Brother QA department as a tester, holding the position of a junior specialist. The party is established as Ms. Zappa's net monthly remuneration at 4,000 credits to be paid at 10th day of every month. Duration of the agreement, see attachment number 1, specific terms, penalties, HR Director. Halina's stock. Have I learned something new about him? I read that already, so I guess the answer is no. And I've read this already as well. A tragic accident happened today on the other side of the ABB. A man has been bitten by an unidentified anthropod during a routine outranger patrol. When the rescue team arrived, Dr. Samuel P. made the dramatic decision to decapitate the patient, who turned out to be a civilian. Unconfirmed sources claim that the man, Michał S., didn't have the required pheromone implants to protect the outrangers against the mutated fauna. The same sources suggest that the victim was closely related to Captain Barnaba B., the commander of the ill-fated patrol. The captain has initiated court proceedings regarding the decapitation of Michał S. The trespassing of ABB by an unvaccinated civilian will be, to quote Harald Orion, the Outranger spokesman, investigated internally. Stay tuned for sports and esports news. Don't go anywhere. Embezzlement in the Outrangers? I have a hot little piece of gossip about the Toads. The Outrangers, I love it. And it's a romance. You're joking. A virtual one. No way. Oh yes, and on top of that, some embezzlement. Tell me, I'm shaking. So there's this captain, let's call him B. We don't want to deal with the courts, slander suits and all that stuff. How about Bob? Do you like Bob? Bob is fine. So Bob has a lover. Outranger Bob has found love. That's so romantic. And that lover of his, let's call him M. Martin. Martin it is. So Martin is a Zoanet. All he has left is his head. Even less, actually. Poor guy. He had an accident. I can't tell you more or they'll fire me. That's fine. As you can imagine, this head has to be cared for, nursed. It is a lot of work, basically a full-time job. Plus it costs a fortune, I see, and our captain gets his money somehow. Was his salary not enough? According to our estimates provided by various gossipers, the captain's outranger salary may not be sufficient to cope with such a burden. Plus, recently, Martin was moved to a netrium minus the head. That's even more expensive. It's getting interesting, right? The captain's guy has always been impeccable reputation. He's a decorated and respected disciplinarian. Then suddenly, a lot of Outrangers weaponry and some augmented armor disappeared from their storage. You know, the kind of equipment that is really sought after by all kinds of mercenaries and people who pay well. Maybe someone broke in. Maybe, but you see, the netrium, poor Martin, the captain's sudden wealth, and then such a coincidence. I would love to find out the truth, but without it, all we have left is to gossip, right? The World is Strange podcast. Okay, I read this already. Read both of those. Herman Tick. In the name of Perun the Almighty and Burnt, do you want a divine glitch granted to you? Then heed the words of the fiery Perunian master who speaks through me. You shall take a powering cable and bestow an immortal life to your console. So says Perun the Almighty and the common sense. You shall plug it, lest it works not. And advises us all, the Almighty Perun, the technical appliances work better when powered up. Ye who crave the divine glitch, heed my words and your glitch itch shall be soothed. First, hold the start button with all of your focus and your might. Reset thy console. You shall yank the disk out and press the start button. Alas, be warned. Remember indeed, my friend, the disks should be inside before you begin. Before, you know. An update, I mean, heed the amendment of the ineffable glitch instruction. A mistake was made by me. Steps 1 and 4 were swapped. First and fourth swapped places in my previous post. You shall amend my mistake. Interchange steps 1 and 4. Are you stupid? My instructions were so simple. A 5-year-old Perun could have done it with his eyes shut. The things are bound by logic and thus obvious. If I tell you to take the disk out, does it not follow that it needed to be put in beforehand? It does. And does it not follow that the disk situation needed to be spotless? Disk station needed to be spotless. It doesn't, but you should know it has to be clean, like the goddess Mokosh. Idiots. It seems that Ramona has predatory instincts. She can sense people who are undecided, weak or broken, and she doesn't treat them too kindly. Anyone talking to her shouldn't sugarcoat things or beat around the bush. What Ramona looks like. In a looped 3D film, there was a girl sitting at the bar table. She was focused, stooped over the pink exoskeleton of her left arm. Using a tool similar to a screwdriver, she was adjusting the exoskeleton, apparently trying to suppress the tremor in her hand. I had seen it before. People using bad game pills or poor helmets tended to have neurological problems, usually limbs trembling. The exoskeleton had a walktail hooked up to it. It was lying on the table. She glanced at it constantly, watching some charts. I could tell she knew what she was doing. I looked at her face. There was some fierceness and determination in her expression. Anger. Her aggressive makeup did little to cover her fatigue and pale complexion. She was very thin. Her hair stood straight up and was dyed pink and yellow. Password to the bartender in harvest time. Bob Zappa said that if I needed help in harvest time, all I had to do was say the password to the bartender working there, whatever that means. Bob the designer. Harvest time only seems to be a leisure game, but someone with programming and design experience will notice numerous nuances in it, despite the accelerated growth of flora. To illustrate the thesis, let's focus on the carrot, a vegetable that is rather rarely cultivated in the game. The blooming, and yes, carrots bloom in harvest time, just like in Realium, is caused by phytopheromones that are released only under conditions appropriate environmental stimuli. After many experiences, players discovered that the blooming is accelerated by the so-called vernalization, the reduction of the ambient temperature to 0 to 10 degrees Celsius. And yes, in harvest time, this is possible by placing a barrel of ice by the patches, available from Fruity Hilda. The same applies to the positive and negative allelopathy, i.e. the mutual positive and negative impact of plants. For example, do the players know that they should not plant dill next to the carrots? Well, they will learn that if they see other players who don't they see that other players who don't achieve faster growth and find treasures more frequently. And do you know that carrots, like most plants, enter mycorrhizal relations, that is, relations with fungi? Carrots provide fungi with assimilates, while fungi provides carrots with water containing mineral salts, antibiotics, and possibly the possibility of contact with other plants, because plants communicate with each other in harvest time, our innocent leisurely game, just as they do in Realium. All these processes are depicted in dependency algorithms that carry a high number of variables, cared for by a created bot, Hiroshi Avila, who, besides supervising the growth of 30% of plants in the game, acts as a kind NPC who gives fun tasks to new players. This will be all for the introduction. And now we will move to the most popular plants of the game, which are pumpkins, and the negative allelopathy of pumpkins with squash, cucumbers, sunflowers, and tomatoes. Fragment of the article Plant Growth in Digital Environment, Senior Designer Robert Zappa. Termination of employment. As of the date, Senior Designer Robert Zappa is no longer employed by Sun Games, located at Cole Tower in Katowice. Both parties agreed that his creation, which supervises the growth of 30% of fauna in harvest time, can assume all of his responsibilities to allow Mr. Zappa the opportunity of development working games involving other scripts than ones concerning plant growth and cooperation. Mr. Zappa will receive severance pay corresponding to 3 monthly salaries and a rating of 4.5. Furthermore, Mr. Zappa is prohibited from being employed by companies standing in competition to Sun Games for 7 years following the signing of this agreement. With consideration of the future of Mr. Zappa, Sun Games has purchased a liberating training course for him, which Mr. Zappa has agreed to attend, with wishes of fortune in all future endeavors. Wow, this is quite severe. A 7-year non-competition clause? Like, what is he supposed to do? I would assume if you're making games, any other company that's making games, it's technically speaking your competition. Silly Sally's code, which I no longer care about. Slick's lies. You know Slick? Strange dude. I discovered his key. He has a key like a program? Sure does. Also seemed strange to me at first, because he's always lying, right? Wrong, in a way. I mean, he lies, but if you know when he's lying and when he's not, you see that there's a method to his madness. I would love to tell you that I understand that, but I mean, how would you know when he... It's simple really, just listen. When Slick talks about himself, or about a situation in which he was involved, then he's lying? Yes, every damn time, but if he's talking about someone else, you can almost always rely on it being solid info. You mean that's when he's telling the truth? Yes, lies about himself, tells truth about the others. Have you tested it? A number of times. I asked others about it, they all confirm it. He's a fucked up weirdo though, isn't he? Yeah, not exactly right in the head, but that's probably why he plays cards so brilliantly. Bluffing is all that he knows. Harvest time town rolls. Sometimes I like to make money in a game. So you become a guide then. I take on roles, preferably that of a bartender. Somebody here enjoys a drink. Did you know that there are games where you play roles instead of getting paid? Where you pay to play roles instead of getting paid? That's daylight robbery. You've got that right. I played something like that recently. It was truly odd. It was called Harvest Time. Cool name. That's about the only cool thing about it. You see, you can play as a gravedigger, a banker, or a bartender, but you have to pay. No. Yes. That's not all though. If you purchase such a role, and you happen to be away from the game, your job gets taken over by a bot. That's understandable. But bot sucks, and the players can't tell the difference, so if they don't appreciate you shirking your responsibilities, they can report you. What? Why? For slacking on the job? No way. And once there are enough reports, you lose your role. I don't believe it. What is that shit called again? Harvest Time. Why the fuck would anyone play this? It beats me. Midnight Express. Frank, do you like trains? You mean like public transport tubes? No, I mean the old ones that run on steam. No. No? They depress me. Railway stations in all of those games, styled to look like they are set in olden days, have a certain sadness about them. Locomotives are dirty black, and those tracks, I don't like them. Well, color me surprised then, because I thought you would say I like them, and then I would answer how there's this one train that's not that interesting, but since you feel that way... Oh, come on, spit it out. There's this game, Harvest Time. I never heard of it. It's the Wild West combined with growing crops on a farm, and it's free to play. Yuck. And there's supposed to be this cool train there, but all in all, it's kinda lame. And they are making a big deal out of it too, saying you've got to get this golden, gorgeously animated ticket to get on. Golden? Well, yeah. It has this nice animation that plays as you're tearing it. You can buy the ticket with real money, or dig it out of the ground somewhere. I mean, fuck, it might drop from a chest. And then what? Nothing. You use this shitty ticket to go on a train, this excited voice tells you you're about to see some amazing sights, and off you go. It's supposed to go through those canyons and mountains, some hills and flowers and shit, but seriously, haven't I seen more interesting places? So it's lame? Well, there is this one place called Monumental Valley, sort of a haven for those who've spent a fortune in the game, and when you look out of the window, you can see houses floating in the air, but you can't get off the train. So it's lame. Yeah, that does sound pretty lame. Freemium or premium? Basha, have I told you about this new peculiar game with an even more peculiar name? I won't answer you unless you say the name, Stasha. Let me say it then, Basha. Harvest Time. Harvest Time? No, you haven't told me about it, Stasha. Let me tell you about it then. It's free to play. That's terrible. I don't want to know anything else. Their account options include freemium and premium. Close. No, premium. Close. Freemium and premium. And I even played it. You've defiled yourself? Yes, and it was quite nice. I started out with a freemium account, and I wasn't spending even a single credit, but it was anonymous, so I couldn't properly create a character or get a fancy avatar or a name. Looks like you were having a wonderful time then, Stasha. But I played on a public farm for a spell. I even dug up a buried treasure chest, and then the game has those boosts that make you work faster. So you joined the game where you had to work. Lovely. And then I bought a premium account and got a private farm. The farm was registered, mind you. Whatever that means. I could finally go on about creating a proper character, improving my farm, obtaining rare items. You sound like an addict. And then I went and sold it all. Really? Of course, Basha. I'm not about to start making a fool out of myself. Grey with Basha and Stasha, or old crones on the joys of breaking digital bones. Lootboxing. And that's why lootboxing is introduced into the game, in our game, Void Stars. But let's be frank, lootboxing is shit. Could you be more specific? A steaming pile of shit. Speaking of, there's this bit. I'm going to quit for a bit, said the captain, leaving to take a shit. Good one, right? It's meh. Lootboxing. It's shit for a simple reason. A random program determines if 1,000 pieces of loot gets you 1,000 unique items or 1,000 steaming piles. But if a player accepts those rules, then they know what they are getting, what they are agreeing to, right? Did you know what you were agreeing to when you married your old lady? But a person doesn't know what they are agreeing to unless they've lived through it, experienced it, and then they got roped into gambling, saying to themselves, maybe this time I'll get something cooler. This is the intermittent reinforcement, the most effective form of conditioning. I only wanted to... Right. That's why temporary marriages were introduced, lasting a year or two instead of a lifetime. Since we have access to immortality, that's what I wanted to talk about. Kasia, I love you and we're just fine. Okay, interesting. So apparently there are temporary marriages in this world. How to make money or playing Derma. If you don't know how to make money off a free-to-play crap, there is only one right answer, the real money auction house. No premium account needed, freemium will do just fine. Let's use Harvest Time as an example. It's a shitty game no matter how you slice it, but a player who knows what they are doing can turn it into a gold mine, literally. Harvest Time has you digging for buried chests, which used to be called treasures. Years ago this game had some ambition, seriously. There are items in the chests. Sometimes they suck, sometimes they are cool, and very rarely they are amazing. It all depends on the RNG, an algorithm that determines what you dig up. You can either keep these artifacts for yourself if you're a sucker, or trade them if you're sharp. How? By relying solely on the auction system. But why only in this way? First, no one will get on your ass about it because it's legal. Half of the profit from every transaction goes to the game developer and the state as a tax. The other thing, zero stress. That's also important, especially when you're eyeing several deals. The less noise you make, the farther you'll get, as they say in Mother Russia. Over there, millions of players trade billions of items. You're practically untraceable in the crowd, especially if you use a pseudonym. You don't have to worry about tax because it takes care of it for you. Money is transferred to your account, and you don't have to give a flying fuck about the rest. I must be stupid to be peddling this kind of knowledge for free, but fuck, I'm feeling generous. In-game duels. Many games incorporate a duel mechanic. You know, like in the Western, you and your opponents face off against one another, and whoever is first to draw, aim well, and shoot is the winner. Well, I've got a handful of tips about what you should be doing to come up on top. The first fundamental thing is obviously your aiming skill, but that tends to be relatively straightforward. Anyone who has played a few matches of a shooter knows how to make the foresight align with your backside and the purpose of various sight types. What you don't know comes down to our natural responses. It's a fascinating thing with research dating back to the 20th century. In experiments conducted at that time, researchers have discovered that the natural speed of a person drawing first is lower than that of a person drawing in response to the opponent's move. See what I'm getting at? Reaction is faster than action. Now, as far as real-life situations go, involving real body with inertia, weight of a weapon, it turned out that reaction speed being faster didn't translate to victory, as too much time was lost on trying to spot when the opponent reached for a gun. We're talking about fractions of a second here, mind you. But things are different in games. In sensory worlds, digital bodies usually offer no resistance, and weapons are much lighter, and our brains react much more efficiently when they don't have to look out for our well-being of our corporeal bulk, which, let's be honest here, is nothing but a burden. To be more succinct, in games, the neural speed of a person reacting to an attack is much higher than that of the attacker, a fact that produces tangible results. My advice then is as follows: if you want to win a duel, don't rush to attack, especially if you see that your opponent is calm. Consider my advice and trust your neurons. They will do the job. Duel, oh yes, it's true, Rancher. Our game doesn't have a mechanic for PvP, except there is one. The Sunset Duel, Duel at Sunset, romantic, charming and ecstatic. If you want to face off against your destiny, challenge a player who wears the mantle of a sheriff in a given town. You can only do so at dusk. Imagine crowds gazing at you, fixated on your hand's every move, every flicker of the eyelids. Beware though, brave cowboy. If you beat your opponent, you'll become the sheriff yourself. Before you go on challenging sheriffs, make sure you've got yourself a revolver. That is a rather rare item, which is why when you start playing, you will see the icon grayed out on the UI. There are ways to get hold of this weapon in Harvest Time, but we won't reveal them to you, as to not to spoil your fun. Locations in Harvest Time. There are plenty of villages and towns to visit in our game, some smaller, some larger, some just for freemium players, others which cater to more mixed crowd, and then there are some reserved exclusively for those who have invested substantial sums into the game. Monumental Valley is a place you will want to visit, but in order to become worthy of this honor, you'll have to consider your priorities and answer the questions of whether you take our game seriously. The Midnight Express will take you to all of the game's major locations. Some can only be admired through the train's windows, while others you can visit: Trade Town, Flower Village, High Mountains, Great Canyons, and Salt Lake, to name a few. Choose where you want to start your adventure, grab a shovel and get to it. All locations listed are available to premium players only. The Orange Dream, one of the organizations within Harvest Time, special feature: all players from this group wear orange shirts. Your ticket. Hey there, you lucky devil. This is your personal ticket to the Midnight Express. It entitles you to one ride on Harvest Time's fabulous train. Board the train, tear the ticket, and marvel at the brilliant animation. Travel to any station you wish. Don't forget, getting off the train invalidates your ticket. This is a one-way ticket. The developers of Harvest Time wish you an unforgettable experience. Howdy, partner. I see this premium beast, a speedy steed, has caught your eye. This majestic creature is used for traveling between towns and gives the Midnight Express a run for its money. Speedy steeds are no good for farm work. They are used exclusively as means of transport. One more thing. Remember not to stand directly behind a speedy steed. Its tail is so strong that a single swing will send you flying several meters into the air. Premium horses are available to premium players only. Yee-haw, rancher. We see you can't help but look at one of our premium horses. Wonderful, wouldn't you agree? If you're interested in hoofed mammals, there's a roundup of facts about the grazing horse. Grazing horses' only purpose is to work on farms and increase their wealth. Their biology makes them incapable of long journeys and keeps them from being fast runners, but they generate sizable amounts of gold coins. That's what they are for. Isn't that wonderful? A subscription. Stop twiddling your thumbs. Buy a premium account. If you're not sure which form of subscription is the best choice for you, we have a few suggestions. The 5-year plan, the Pioneer. You transfer funds to your accounts one every 5 years, and then you can put it out of your mind. You're free to just enjoy yourself. For more fastidious players, we have a 2-year plan, the Settler. It's convenient and comes with a stack of bonuses. If you like to keep tabs on your investments, buy yourself the Partner plan. The transfer of funds is made automatically once a year, so you needn't worry about forgetting. Bigger farms, extra ornaments that others don't have, early access to upgrades. Going premium means prestige and the respect of other players. You'll find detailed information about each type of account by clicking on the links below. Pioneer subscription rules, bonuses, and privileges are listed in the link below. Clicking on the accept icon is tantamount on accepting the subscription and purchasing a trial subscription for the proposed period. Opening prestige. Howdy, rancher. A farmer's prestige is determined by multiple factors, nuances including the questions: who opens the chests? If you do it yourself, that means you work on a public farm. You don't have a piece of land or a premium account. That's nothing to be ashamed of, but remember, any genuine rancher has their chests opened for them by an assistant. Use a trial account or buy a premium package. Bask in the prestige and respect. A Knight's Code, a clan-based MMO that takes place on floating islands stylized after medieval Japan. Game objective: territory control, conquering neutral and hostile areas, forming alliances, developing means of attack and defense. Features NPCs. Recruits insignia. Recruits insignia are a symbol of being a member of the Hon clan. They must be crafted at the forge. A versatile tool, although its delicate structure makes it prone to breaking, it will open most small locks found in the enemy's stronghold. A massive key used to open massive locks. The forge. I read the instructions for the forge already. Iron and steel, some materials, also called resources, can be gathered at the stronghold. Others are more advanced and need to be crafted at the forge. A meditation bowl, which I've already created. The antivirus, which I've read already. Adelheim syndrome. First detected in 2195 by Stanley Chekhovsky, who worked at Nanotronic Arts internal services in the sensory world of dream space. It accelerates the player's aging process as a result of introducing illegal virtual time-compressing software into the game. The first victim of AS was Bronisław Adamski, known in the dream space as Bruno Adelheim, who showed strong symptoms of a game addiction. In Adamski's autopsy, it was determined that his biological age was around 95. Despite an age of 40 being listed in the register, he developed the aforementioned cheat and implemented it in Dreamspace, which allowed him to grow an impressive chain of factories. Within 3 virtual decades, he became the wealthiest man in the game. In Realium, he was a poor bachelor who supported himself by selling Dreamspace bonuses to wealthy players. The mechanisms through which the time affects the player's temporal metabolism are still being examined. The hypotheses currently being explored include DNA telomere shortening, mitochondrial DNA aging, autoimmune mechanisms, synaptic nervous system affecting the rate of cell division, and others. No coherent theory explaining this phenomenon has yet been formulated. The problem with determining how Adalheim syndrome actually works is the inability to conduct human experiments with the aforementioned cheat. Test subjects would have to be exposed to the program hazardous to their health, which would be unethical. So far, experiments on animals introduced into sensory worlds and exposed to time acceleration programs have yielded no tangible results. Now, Adalheim syndrome is actually from the book. There is one of the short stories in the first book. It deals specifically with this. It is discovered in the course of the book. Dark web. Today, we'll be taking a closer look at something seemingly simple, yet also a mysterious topic, the dark web, the web of darkness. To explain this phenomenon, we have Lee Innell with us from the Warsaw University. Good morning, Professor. Good morning to you, sir, and good morning to the audience. So, the dark web, a fascinating topic indeed, at least from the psychological point of view. Why is that? Imagine, if you will, a human psyche, then separate it into consciousness and subconsciousness. Take everything you like and accept about yourself and make it a part of your consciousness. The subconsciousness will in turn serve as a deposit for everything you don't like, despise, or hate about yourself. Is there a lot of it? I'm not sharing that. Now, imagine a human psyche and repeat the process. Take everything dark, frightening, generally unacceptable, albeit real, about people and make it a part of the subconscious. How much stuff is there? A lot. More than in the consciousness section? I'm not sure. No? Let's summarize then. There are nearly 20 billion people living in cage-like cities whose ABBs keep them separated from the aggressive ecosystem. To somehow cope with reality, many have transferred their lives to the net. Freck Noir Heavy Industries has recently announced that the efforts to terraform Gaia, a planet in the Sigma Draconis system, have been successful. It has triggered an emigration to the new, clean, mutation-free planet, though naturally only for those who can afford the ticket, with Pharma Nanolabs releasing their BLBs. We have discovered that immortality is within our reach. If we can afford it, that is. The Interscope Corporation created Rendans, synthetic brains, and Mobrium's mechanical bodies, which created an opportunity for attaining a digital immortality of sorts. But again, only the rich could benefit from it. BWI encourages, surprise, only the wealthy to have the company and make them brand new human beings, so-called digenets, to expand the human right to procreate and to give rise to a new set of ethical controversies. People without money realized that they could neither afford a better life on the planet nor longevity. It dawned on them that they would die without any prospects, and having experienced very little joy, with the pastimes of the rich being unavailable to them. How do you think? Do you really think this doesn't breed anger? Well, nature hates a vacuum. New solutions made invisible to people in power emerge whenever there's a feeling of injustice. People will find a way. They will create underground market for commodities, services, trade. But how do they manage the financial aspect? We don't use cash anymore, so transactions can be traced. That is where sensory worlds come in-game currencies, items, and so on. Do you think these goods are traded exclusively by wacky gamers? These digital currencies and items have a real-life value, and the transactions made using them are much harder to track. So to sum up, you're saying that the dark web was created out of anger? No, I'm saying that everything that exists casts a shadow. The shadow created by humanity is enormous. The dark web is a manifestation of that shadow. You spoke about a shadow cast by the poorest among us. What about the richest? Do they cast a shadow as well? I believe theirs is even bigger than the one cast by the poor. Are you talking about Lex Occulta? No, my good sir. If Lex Occulta really exists, I assure you we will not find it on the normal net or on the dark web. But do you think if it exists? Next question, please. I read this. This is new, actually. Investigator. Now, that's a good program. Really good. It's also illegal. Its job is to track down a player's Virtualium address and retrieve their personal information. So it's a gem. Only one issue with it. Well, more like two. It takes time to work. You have to be patient, and you mustn't break the connection with the person you want to investigate. 2. To turn on the investigator, you have to touch another player, and you can't let go. Hold on for as long the investigator is analyzing the data. The pressure doesn't have to be strong, you don't need to pinch, but you have to be touching their avatar's skin. That's how it works. So you see, although the program is useful, actually using it is cumbersome. How do you justify shaking someone's hand and then holding it for a minute? It's messed up. Over the course of my career, I've used the investigator either as a last resort or when some miracle gave me the opportunity, but I definitely recommend it. I don't think I read any of those. A Gamedecs arsenal. It's inevitable that from time to time you will run into another game deck during a job. Sometimes you'll be working the same case but find yourself on the opposing sides. I'm not saying this happens often, but like I said, it does happen. At that point, it's best to talk things out, but it's not always an option. Professional ethics require absolute discretion. Betraying a customer is a lifetime blemish. Keep in mind that these days anything can be faked, so your credibility is everything, your reputation. If you're not about to come to an agreement, you have to know how to strike and how to keep your guard up. And I'm not talking about actual fighting or other digital magic. Obviously we are talking about combat in sensory worlds. It's a digital scuffle of sorts. All about gaining an advantage, establishing control, having access to resources in the cloud which will leave you with more options than your opponent. Understand? You have to be able to gain control over your opponent, that's it. A well-prepared game deck should carry an arsenal of offensive and defensive applications, one that will drown the opponent in data packets or queries and the like. There are two types of offensive and defensive applications, concentrated and dispersed. There's one more classification, instant, fast or slow. This classification applies to offensive and defensive apps alike. Names like concentrated, dispersed, fast or slow, they are slang expressions supposedly helping you imagine how they work. I think they are dumb, but replacing them with programmer gibberish would make things worse, believe me. Pay attention now because this is important. Use a defensive application with traits that match the offensive application you're trying to control. Understand? If you're guarding, use a shield of the same type as someone's sword smacking through it. So if someone is hacking away at you with an application that's concentrated and instant, you must respond with a shield of the same type. One more thing, an application's effectiveness is contingent with its speed. Instant applications are executed immediately but have the lowest effectiveness. Slow ones are the strongest. And last, the names of the programs are weird, old school. Why? Because they are old. Back in the day of Sam Hawthorne, Gamedecs have gotten so used to them that no one can be bothered to change them, so don't be surprised, okay? Okay, that's a list of the attacks. Other popular instant applications are Guard and Monster, also known as Godzilla. I don't feel like writing anymore. If you can't remember this, you'll figure out the rest. I mean, fuck, it's not like I'm charging you anything for all of this. Some black market programs have different names, but they are all the same as the basic versions. That's it then. Good luck. From a Gamedecs guidebook, a scanner. A standard deck carried by a game deck holds a ton of programs, with the scanner being among the most basic. The scanner has many sub-functions. One of them is tracing, which means checking another player's activity, specifically the packets they send and retrieve when communicating with a game's server. Someone might ask, what for? After all, I can guesstimate a player's data transmission while watching them. If they are standing still and doing nothing, it's minimal, and if they are piloting a ship, shooting rockets, communicating with others, giving commands or repairing a ship using robots on top of it all, then the packet transmissions between them and the server are substantial. That sounds reasonable enough, but if you're being frank, it's a reasoning of a noob. If that's what you believe, you should ask yourself if you really want to be a game deck. Now for the explanation. Good cheaters use the shady programs precisely when they appear to be idle. The first example that comes to mind, Bruno Adelheim from Dreamspace, he would fly into a factory, supposedly just to carry out a routine inspection, and then bam, production speeds up by 1000%. No one was able to detect it because Bruno was smart and told everyone to keep away from him during inspections. Getting back to the topic at hand, tracing is a useful tool if you want to see someone who happens to be running illegal acceleration software. The scan is delicate, practically unnoticeable, and the information you get is vital. I'm not saying that the substantial data transmission should always be treated as evidence of cheating, but my fellow game decks, seeing it should always put you on alert, especially in a case of otherwise idle player. And Gamedeck goggles. It's kind of an underrated app, but to be honest I don't know why. Mainly it's because not many game decks know how to use it and mistake it for a scanner. Goggles are directional, they are not a radar. The nature of what you're looking at will be revealed to you, so you need to know what is it that you're looking for. Sometimes they will only point you in a direction. It is a good piece of software, but only for professionals. Safety scan. Why is safety scan so good, but also a bit dangerous? Because admins use a similar app. These tools share a similar signature and can simply detect that you're using a suspicious program. Basically, a safety scan is convenient because it works like a radar. It detects invisible objects around you, including players, but it shows up quite obviously in the logs, so watch out for security services. You know the ones, they are in every game. So unless you're in some lame-ass world, and you know there are virtually no admins there, in that case, scan away. I read that already. Enough about crying guns, Rick. Let's move to Goodabads. I knew you were going to bring up that bloody sport. There's no bleeding involved, but there is suffering. Oh, and that's the beautiful part. The ribbon of the Hammerfield scale unfolding over the tortured, the knowledge of the damage, the knowledge that damage points inflict real pain, that the 10H hurts like surgery without anesthesia, with 20 being nigh inconceivable. Do you see them as gladiators of the 22nd century? Of the end of the 22nd century? Yes, they are real heroes. There are also a lot of female players. That's because women are more resilient. That's cheating. But still, there's only one human being, and a man on that matter, capable of taking a 20. Yes, Peter Crash kites. But we're supposed to move on to the games, Mr. Way. That's right. In keeping with the Saturday custom, the Seventh Heaven Arena will be the venue of a clash between the winged demons of the Black Tridents and the archangels from the Roaring Wings. The only cover comes in the form of clouds and stronghold walls. Then it looks like we're in for a bloodbath. Rick, I told you, there's no bleeding. Read that already. Tree of Knowing. Do you honestly think it was there, in this graveyard? If so, then the ledge it grew on collapsed. That's why there's no trace of it. That means, my dear, that I'm not sure of it. The tree of knowledge in harvest time? Now that would be something. The cosmic tree, the axis of the world, axis mundi, the tree of good and evil. The symbol is present in every culture. The Vikings, Australian tribes, Christian and Slavic myths, it's everywhere. I have a fantasy about it. Of course you do. According to the creeds, time stops on the tree's axis. It lets you connect with the past and the future. I've heard about that. For the Australian Arente people, the cosmic axis is a pillar that transforms unknown space into a world, an ordered reality. I am familiar with that legend. Want to know my theory? It's called the hypothesis, my dear. You want to know what it is? No. Well, it's that the tree of knowing represents the human nervous system. That's a stretch. No, it's not. Graphical representation of the structure, the mythical tree of knowing, looks very strange. The crown is ridiculously small, while the trunk is long and a magnitude of small branches protruding from it. The crown is the brain, and the trunk is the spinal cord, and the branches are peripheral nerves that connect to the spinal cord? Yes, the tree's roots, in turn, represent all of the remaining peripheral nerves, the ones going on all the way down to the legs. Fascinating, isn't it? Nope. But wait, that's not all. The concepts of the past, present and future are all uniquely human. What do you mean? Everything we see reaches us with a delay. You see a tennis ball coming towards you at high speed, but by the time the image reaches your ocular interpretive center of the brain, it will have already moved. The brain perceives reality kind of like astronomers see the stars. It sees what's already happened, but it's aware of that. So the brain knows where the tennis ball was and must create a projection of where it's going to be at the moment. If it were to just operate based on past image, you wouldn't be able to hit the ball back. Do you get it? What's your point? The impressions of the past, present and future come from the brain that creates them. These concepts don't matter to a rock, it doesn't need them. They are needed by living, cognizant entities. I'll go further. When you're trying to remember something, you activate areas of the brain that are the same as when you're imagining the future. The brain, like the axis mundi, generates the past and the future. Furthermore, like the world axis of the Arente, it arranges unknown matter into organized matter. After all, the brain creates images of reality, as reality doesn't have an inherent appearance. So the tree of knowing is our nervous system? Yes, a place that generates past, present and future, a place that generates images of reality, and that name, the tree of knowing. I mean, our nervous system ultimately functions as a tree of knowing. It's used for cognition. Fascinating, isn't it? Quite. Indeed. I'm interested in something else, though. And what would that be? The cosmic tree appears in different places, across different games. How is that possible? Games have their own engines, use proprietary software. You know, a talented hacker could. But why? For what purpose? From what I've gathered, it's just there. It doesn't do anything special. Supposedly you can experience an epiphany while being near it. That would be something. If it proves false, though, then this artifact is nothing but a pathetic and a pointless stunt. Like our lives? Like our lives, my dear. Now, this is actually a pretty interesting point, which I have never considered, but it is kind of trippy. How... because that's true, right? You don't... You know, it all happens from a human perspective. It's all instantaneous. But if you were to look at the actual times, it is true that the things you see, you know, it takes time for light to be reflected off of the object that you're looking at and then hit your eye, and then for your brain to interpret that image. It's very quick, but it does take time. So technically speaking, when you're observing reality, you're observing the past. You're never actually seeing the actual moment of things. That's kind of trippy. I never thought about it. Okay, I read all of that already before. I want to be a dragon. Some sensory worlds give us a chance to play with non-human characters equipped with extra limbs or unusual limbs, wings that either replace arms or constitute an additional pair of limbs, in the case of mythological dragons, while others let us control creatures with completely different physiques and motor skills. Playing with such characters is an exciting experience, but there are some nuances worth keeping in mind. First, some games only imitate non-human motility. The player is actually running on digital legs, while the model of a cat dashes forward on 4 paws. These are cheap titles, and there is no need to be afraid of them. Then there are games that take matters seriously and have algorithms that allow players to control extra or unusual limbs and to adapt to non-human motility. They switch around the central neural paths of the user brain, teaching them new kinds of movement. This is safe as long as you remember about 4 things. Only play legal games whose algorithms have been put in place by responsible engineers. Never use cheats that aren't designed for a particular game. Cheats that turn you into a dragon, when used in a game that doesn't have such creatures, can be dangerous for a number of reasons. Most importantly, they can, to put it in simple words, turn your brain to mush. Bad enough that you might not be able to walk, lift a spoon, or take out your walker for hours after leaving the couch. Use good hardware. An untested helmet paired with an illegal cheat is a recipe for movement problems, both during and after gameplay. Don't push yourself too hard. That's a general rule of thumb. Even though good game pills might allow you to play for up to 4 days, don't turn it into a habit when controlling said dragon, and do not go beyond that limit. These days, we are surrounded by misinformation, but personally I would advise against 4-day sessions. Even the best suits and nutri-fluids can't compensate for such long periods of immobility. To sum it up, if you want to be a dragon, go ahead, but remember about your safety and listen to common sense.